Thank you, Anne. It's my pleasure to introduce the last poet reading today, David Keplinger. He is the author of 8 collections of poetry, including most recently Ice, which looks like this, from Milkweed Editions, appearing this year. His previous book, also from Milkweed, is titled Another City. Another City was awarded the UNT Rilke Prize. David has received many awards and honors for his poetry, including the Emily Dickinson Award from the Poetry Society of America, 2 NEA fellowships, the Colorado Book Award, and the T.S. Eliot Prize. And actually another prize that he was awarded was one that I selected many years ago. So at Smartish Pace, I've been editing this magazine for 25 years. I've been judging a prize for 22 years, and in 2005, I selected a poem of David's, and I dug it up this morning from the archives. It's in this issue. So this is Smartish Pace from 2005, and David won a poetry prize. I picked his poem. And then I think you said we met later?
We did. We met that year at
AWP.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen each other since.
No.
Well, it's nice to see you again. Thanks for sending good work to the magazine a long time ago. All right. David comes to us today from Washington, D.C., where he spends his time, among other things, directing the MFA program at American University. Please welcome David Keplinger.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Claire. That's a lovely poem. Thank you. And thank you, Laura, my friend Laura, who flew here from California and who really is responsible for my being here, because it was through an encounter at AWP that this whole thing unfolded. So thank you all for your part in making it happen. I'm going to read some poems from this book, Ice, that are related to its title, but they're in a bit of a different direction than some other readings that I've given. And it's a book about permafrost in Siberia. In the first part of the book, I'm looking at animals that have been frozen for 40,000 years, 50,000 years under melting permafrost, now melting permafrost in Yakutia in Siberia. And as a result of climate change, these bodies are being found just exposed on the land or are being dug up. Sometimes people are out looking for other things and they find a giant wolf head the size of a child. Or they'll find a small horned lark that's 50,000 years old. Eventually researchers went out to this area because it was obviously special in the way that it was revealing history, live action. And they took a chunk of permafrost and extracted a nematode from it, which is a parasite frozen for 46,000 years, this little flatworm. And it came to life and it began to reproduce. So the babies of this nematode, which could have been born at a time when Neanderthal were walking beside Homo sapiens, was now born in a lab in 2020. And the Washington Post did an article on it actually the week that this book came out. But I found that too fascinating to resist. And I was thinking about Seamus Heaney's great book, North, and the bog people that he was writing about in the midst of the Irish Troubles, and the ways that by looking at those bodies, he was also talking about the sides people were taking in Northern Ireland and in Ireland. And for me too, it happened that as I was looking at these bodies, I started to think about bodies in me under ice, under certain kinds of ice of forgetting and repression and fear, and these bodies that date back to infancy and childhood and adolescence that stay frozen in us and then suddenly appear in reactivity. Suddenly they're back and they think that that reality is still around them, that there's danger. or that the world is other than it actually is. And sometimes you have to kind of just put your hand on the shoulder of those bodies and say, no, we're here now. So this book ended up being about those bodies as well as about the bodies of these animals buried under ice. So I'll just read a couple of the Pleistocene pieces, and then I'd like to read a few more of the other pieces about bodies in me. And this is called Reading the Light Surrounding the Lark. What you're witnessing is not merely residue of ice. They chiseled it apart by toothbrush, for the permafrost had coated it like plaque. But it was not a tooth. It was not rotten. It was perched underground in its negative tree. It was a lark, and it's always been a lark. Then the underground cloud cracked, melted, and the lark fell upward to our world. To read the light around the lark, imagine you've chiseled part of you away, an old part at the beginning of a succession of your childhood bodies. You fall upward from your previous body out of the melting ice. And when you look back on each body, if you will brush them carefully, if you'll chisel what's not you carefully, you'll know that each is still bewildered and desiring to stay in what it must believe is the only world, the one that's safe, the real one. The third part of this book involves going to places where poems important to me were written and writing about reading that poem in that place. And the reason I go there is because the thing that melted all of that ice in me, that fight, flight, freeze stuff in me, or that has begun to melt it at least, is poetry. That reading and literature and thinking about stories has helped me to read the world. You start with this, and then it's through this that you begin to read the world as a text, or you get better at it. I don't know if you ever get really healed by that, but I would say that you get better at reading into things when you start looking closely into texts. At least it happened for me, and I have teaching to thank for that, and my students and poetry. So poetry is the light that I'm talking about in the third section, and the warmth of poetry has been so important to me. This is called Reading Emily Dickinson in Amherst, Massachusetts. I know how it feels to live in a small leaden room with only snakes and birds as consolation. I know how to imagine death by falling through stories of floorboards like a poem flutters through molecules, air, and time that never lands in the yard. The trick is not to die while dreaming of death. That's why the circle of doors and windows here remain open a little. That's why the poems seem often to end on slant rhymes and dashes. That's why the hawthorn cone is never quite in full bloom, but almost. I too come here respectfully. I bow halfway at thresholds. I know how to wait at a completely empty window, holding out my hands. Thank you. Thank you. As an example of reading the world as a text, this is called Reading the Buffalo's Face. Moving along, we went to the dairy farm, where they also had goats and horses and one very old, very slow American buffalo. I think it's long gone now. I think it's moved along too, to its pedestal, staring no less evenly at children with their ice cream from its shamble of a face. The fur hung like a shredded hood thrown over what seemed an insupportable skull. My father leaned down to say the herds once flourished thousands of miles from here. I stood high on a step. I could see the buffalo directly, the one eye not moving, that face, a book too big for me, its open page that smelled of earth. This is called Reading Gilgamesh Before Going to Sleep. So I did not go to Uruk in modern day Iraq, but Gilgamesh has been an important story for me. And in this story, the part of Gilgamesh is played by the speaker, and the part of Enkidu is played by my beloved dog, Molly, who traveled with me back and forth from Colorado to Philadelphia over many years, and Molly died about 10 years ago. I'm still writing poems about my dog, but she played an important role in me learning how to be a better citizen of the world. Reading Gilgamesh before going to sleep. In some dreams, it's possible to visit Uruk and to be its king. As I did all along, I was a bad king, predisposed to impatience and affronted by impertinence, and I know now what I really needed was a good friend who could teach me things. Yes, that's what happened as I fell asleep with my arm on the barrel-chested dog, prone to snoring and standing straight up, or barking at the snap of thunder, or a neighbor slamming his fist into a wall. I have known all along I am my own bad friend. But we have killed the monster loneliness, and though injured with a bum leg, and then the hips, and then the kidneys failing, the dog kept showing me what I am not, how I am not like her, not uncomplaining, not joyful in a time of joy, not querulous at things unseen, not guarded in a time of danger. And when she left, I walked through oceans of myself, like Gilgamesh, searching for a way to stay in pain forever. Because I didn't know how else to honor what had died for me. Yes, I was wrong, of course. I was an idiot, a king of human beings. And when I had the chance to live, I was distracted anyway. Then it was possible to see the rheumy-eyed and coughing old citizens of my city, and to weep for what I should have known, that I was the rheumy-eyed and coughing citizen, dying, which is the only way to visit Uruk and to become its king. There's a little partner poem for this at the end of the first section of this book, and it's called The Ice Age Wolf That Love Is. So there is a puppy, and I urge you all to look this up. Just type, maybe not now, but later, just type Dogor into your phone, and you'll come upon the pictures of an 18,000-year-old puppy with a little wet nose and closed puppy eyes and eyelashes and fur and calyx of fur in a lab that was found in the same permafrost, called Dogor, which in the Yakut language means friend. And it's very interesting that in English, if you look this up too, the etymology of dog is very difficult to trace. There are lots of ideas about where dog came from, but it could be that dog actually does come from this word friend that can be traced back to the Proto-Indo-European language, that it predates Sanskrit. And this little Dogor, this little puppy that I'm looking at, 18,000 years old, impossible to tell whether it's wolf or dog, could be one of those original friends with the friendly gene. It's fantastic. So I look into little Dogor's face and I see my own heart. The Ice Age wolf that love is. You'd grown 3 weeks into your mouthful of teeth before your eyes froze shut and then your throat, and now you're thawing moping again, pretending to be a tongue and wet fur and padded feet. My darling, whose day has come. From out of your mother you fell into ice at play, in a pocket of snow, pure love that dug deep as the mama and the others dissolved quickly, and the father who'd gone to the important place did not return. It took one night for the world to harden you into a long bewildered thought. But 18,000 years before the ice, like a pipe, like a vein, burst open until I say your full name, Dogor. Small bulb that keeps growing new wolf bodies. Dogor, don't harden your eyes and return to the dead. Dogor, don't freeze again. Don't fight me or take flight into 1,000 motes of ice. Dogor, don't bite. Remember what you are. Leap into my face. Doze in the crook of my big boned shoulder. Stay, Dogor. Thank you. So I'll do a couple more. And once again, thanks to Smartish Pace and to Stephen and Claire and to Emma Snyder, where's Emma? There's Emma, who is hosting the event. This is a wonderful space. And thank you for having our books as well. It's really lovely to be here. Okay. So how about two short ones? This is called Sonnet. This is the last poem in the book. And there are a lot of teeth in this book. I didn't realize until later, but there are teeth in the first poem, and there's an allusion to a tooth in the last poem. You heard in the poem about the lark, the idea of this is not a tooth. And I'm obsessed with an image from the Divine Comedy. If you know the last canto of the Inferno, Dante poet finds Satan stuck in a hole of ice at the bottom of hell. And it's from the fall that Satan slammed into the earth and was encased in ice. So it's an image that comes up in this book now and then. But Satan is chewing on 3 betrayers with his canines. So, teeth and dogs and all kinds of great things, and ice, everything is there. So Satan's chewing on Judas, and a couple of other big betrayers, and it's like we chew on our betrayals. This is hell. We just chew, I've been betrayed, I've been betrayed, I've been betrayed. And it's just such a powerful image, and it stayed with me, and I was doing it without even knowing I was doing it. So this is the last poem, and it's about the letting go of all of that. It's called Sonnet. But I'll read one more after that, and I'll tell you what. Sonnet, and this is a poem with an epigraph from Catherine of Siena. You are that which is not. You are that which is not. The stork has gone. Here is the nest. It teeters on the station tower like a satellite dish, encircled in grass or tiny bits of hair, over and over, or yarn around a pair of unseen hands. Old transmissions have come to a hush. The air is static whirl. The road wends. I wonder at this craft, this bulrush basket, mouth in waiting for its tooth. The stork was here. Here is the nest. Praise the giving way, the taking wing. Praise the singing bowl after the song. Praise who cast from such delicate bronze an absence. And then the last poem I'm going to read is called The Last Reader of Poems. And it's a poem that I tucked into the middle of the last section. And I got to thinking about books of poetry that never get opened again, that have a last reader, and then they either go on the shelf or they get passed down generation by generation, and there are books of poems that never get opened again. And so I imagine this as one of those books eventually, as it must be and will be, the last reader of the poem. So this poem is written to the last person who will ever open this book. Fun. The last reader of the poems. They close the book on "The stork has gone," and as the pages folded over the small houses of the words, inside the houses of the words, small people stayed up late into the night writing letters. Like animals sunk into ice, words remain lit inside dead books, without air or time or the eyes that once passed over them. But every gaze was one full day to them. Every reader was a son. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, David. Well, that was a wonderful reading. Your poems are emotionally moving and clever and super creative and funny. Yeah, brilliant. I love that you read. I can't wait to read the rest of your book. So thank you again. Yeah, that does it for this month, guys. We'll be back here on the 14th of January in the new year. As I said earlier, the two poets reading the features then are Courtney LeBlanc and Tony Mall. And we'll continue on from there each month. Grab some books of the poets, have them sign them before you leave today. Thanks again, everybody, for coming out.